Hi, Stephen. Thank you for joining me.
Hello.
So, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Um, well, basically, I mean, I'm just your average guy. Born in Newark, New Jersey. Spent a lot of my childhood in San Diego, California. Uh, I've traveled a lot. I've literally even hitchhiked across America.
Wow.
Um, that was definitely an experience. I'm basically just to me personally, I've always seen myself as an open book.
Yeah.
Um, I've never really shied away from you know, questions about myself or anything like that. So I mean, that's just me.
Yeah. So, if you lived in Jersey and then Cali,
Hmm.
which one do you connect more with? I mean, because those are pretty opposite.
I actually connect with both. I because a lot of people don't realize that everywhere you go, it's technically the same thing, just a different style of going about it. So to be honest with you, I there's things about Jersey that I hate, and there's things that I love. The main thing with New Jersey is it's a melting pot of just all types of races, all types of people, food, culture, everything, and you know, California, don't get it wrong, it's a melting pot as well. However, I feel as if, it's more like, only having like three of the food groups and not having the rest. You know what I mean? So, and I feel like, when it comes down to, things like that, I feel as if New Jersey is more of a, combined of a little bit of everything.
Okay. So, like, more just balanced across everything,
Yeah,
culture, races, all of it.
all of it.
That's awesome.
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been to California. I have been to Ohio. I have not been to New Jersey.
Yeah. I'm currently in Ohio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Ohio was pretty beautiful. It was fall, and I absolutely love fall. I love the trees, I love the colors, and my bucket list. One of the things is to go to the East Coast and just go north. I'm not exactly sure where. Probably I'll just wing it, but I want to see the fall colors in New England in the fall. So I didn't quite make it all the way to the East Coast, but it's on my bucket list.
Yeah. Yeah. The one place that I have not been yet is Maine, and I really want to go to Maine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Yeah, I've got some friends over there, and they don't live in Portland, Maine, but they one of them works in Portland, Maine. So, and I'm actually in the Northwest too. So I make jokes about them being in the wrong Portland. So it's pretty great. So, how do you best spend your time? What are the things you enjoy doing the most?
Be honest with you, it really just depends on my mood. I could, because I'm also a artist as well. So there's times where, I can see something, I'm just out and about, and it just triggers that side of me, to want to start picking up a pen and paper and, just go at it. And there's times where I may be reading a news article or, whatever it may be, and then I want to write a short story, which typically, for me, a short story ends up becoming something bigger, in the long run. Um, uh, Basically anything artistic, really. I
Yeah.
mean, that's for me. That's the best way to spend any type of time besides, with my kids, of course.
Yeah. So I know you write. Do you do other mediums too, or is writing your primary?
Um, Writing mainly. I actually know how to do some coding as well, so I like to do, art on the on a computer, of course, and things like that. So
That's amazing.
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
got lucky. Yeah, I got real lucky with learning anything
Wow.
about that, really.
Yeah, I know enough about coding to know I don't love it. That's where I stopped.
Zeros and
So,
ones don't lie.
no. Yeah. So tell me about your writing.
Um, so it actually started at a young age. What I used to like to do is, just um, first it was either poetry or a bunch of short stories. I actually had one of my poems published in a coffee shop book called Colors of Life. Um, However, just being a kid, it always intrigued me. Anything scientific, anything, in that nature. I've always like I couldn't sit down and write like an autobiography or something like that. I could not for the life of me. But if it's like something that has to do with like using your imagination, going above and beyond, basically entering into another world in your mind. I've always been, attracted to, I guess you could say it's kind of like an escape for me from everyday life, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I know about you is you like are very intelligent. You have a lot of different things that you're interested in. Like I think you're somebody that very much pays attention. Does that does that help in your writing process, or does that make it so you can go in too many different directions?
Oh man, it really can be an Achilles heel at times. However, it definitely helps. Um, just just noticing just the littlest thing. It can make a difference. It's like when you're dealing with people on a daily basis. It's like you can talk to a person, you can tell their mood just by no matter how good they cover it up. You can tell their moods just by the most subtle things that they do, and you can just read it, it's like that for me is like a book, you know, and adding those subtle things make it a little bit more capturing, at least in my eyes.
Yeah. So, what do you think is the most valuable habit that you've picked up over the years?
Be careful of what I think.
Yeah.
It's actually it's funny because when I was younger, I used to get in trouble in school a lot. Um, Typically, I would get bored and just do random stuff, but I ended up going to a counselor. I'll never forget him. He was actually a really great guy, and he had this poster that said, "Be careful what you think because they become words. Be careful of your words because they become actions. Be careful of your actions because they become habits." So in my eyes, one of the things that helped me as far as the way that I look at life, the way that I look at anything, it always starts with programming the way that you think and reprogramming what you think you know.
So just constantly evaluating.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And just realizing you're human. You could be wrong.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a habit that I feel a lot of people can benefit from.
Yeah. It seems like with what's happened in the last year and a half, there's a lot of material and ideas and thoughts coming out about the power of thought and the power of
Yeah.
what you're like manifesting. I keep seeing manifesting in a lot of places,
Hmm.
and I know this has been
Yep.
around. Stoicism, like this. This isn't anything new. It's just it's
Native,
kind of interesting.
manifest destiny.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yep.
interesting how it's having a resurgence now that people have had so much time alone and not in the normal daily grind, and now we're seeing things about manifesting. Be careful with your thoughts. So I'm really. It's unfortunate that it came up because of why it had to come up for the last year and a half, but I'm really thankful that it is coming back up. And
Yeah.
it's like thoughts matter. Even thoughts about yourself, thoughts about the world around you, thoughts about people. Yeah, and what that turns into, the reality that creates for you. So
Yeah.
yeah, very, very powerful.
Yeah. And, people don't realize, it's your mind it's constantly hungry, and it just wants to consume as much as it can, consume as much as it can. And it's no different than your body. If you're constantly eating junk, you're constantly, not being active, you're going to see the results in your physical form. And it's the same thing with what you're feeding into your mind. If you're going off and you're just so stuck in the Kardashians, you know you're not going you're not going to learn life lessons from Kim K. I'm sorry. Her life is totally different than the average American.
Yeah.
Things of that nature. So if you're going to feed your mind with something, I'm not saying that you have to be obsessed with politics, or you have to be obsessed with science or whatever it may be. You don't have to be obsessed with it. However, you do have to make sure that you are feeding your mind that sort of nutrient, so to say.
Yeah.
to be able to sit there and at least have a better understanding more so than what you did.
Yeah. So is balance kind of a reoccurring theme in your life?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like I'm already
Yeah.
noticing that.
Yes. Yeah. If you don't have a balance, it's you'll skip the scale basically.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you ever were into like the Avengers movies.
I've seen some of them.
Um,
Pieces, unfortunately. I never watched them like comprehensively, so I get a lot of flack for that. But I've seen a few.
yeah. Yeah. I'm more of I believe in Thanos's mentality, not the end result of what he was trying to do, but I understand the whole purpose of balance and needing that sort of balance. And that's basically like was his whole persona throughout the whole thing was, he was about balance and trying to balance everything, so yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I don't want to bore you with my nerd side, so
No, no, I'm totally down. So with all the stuff you do, where do you draw strength from? I mean, to
my
keep
pain.
going at the level you go, like,
It's my pain.
yeah,
It's my pain. I I grew up basically having nothing. I remember there was times where I've slept in like train stations with my mother, ate at soup kitchens, slept at homeless shelter, bouncing around from hotel to hotel as a child, and seeing firsthand what the bottom truly honestly feels like and what it felt like to be. I don't want to call it a bottom feeder, but I want to say growing up without hope. And I feel like that is something that you know could either make or break a person. You know,
yeah,
there are people who grow up and they have this and they have that, they lose it all, they lose their minds, and and unfortunately, sometimes it could turn into bad situations. However, I prefer to use those type of situations and those type of scenarios that happen in my life as means of power. That is my power. I harness the chaos, I absorb it, and I make sure that I do not end up back in those sorts of situations.
that's incredible. There's a lot of people that can't conclude that and don't get there. So that's
Exactly.
amazing that that's your point of view at this point, and that's something that you're drawing strength from. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, you've talked about a lot of things like writing and the passion for arts. Are there other things that you just really love?
Science.
Yeah.
Science. Oh yeah. Oh my God, I love science.
Which sciences?
Yeah, I literally get like NASA newsletters and everything else like that. I mean, I truly, I'm a full Trekkie.
I was going to
You
say, I
know.
know there's a certain TV show that you're very partial to, and I
Yeah.
just read that Babylon 5 is coming back.
Oh no, not Babylon 5.
Yeah, yeah. I think they're doing a reboot.
No, I got another show to watch.
Yeah, I actually told my uncle, I'm like, hey, I texted him, I'm like, hey, because he's been a Trekkie my entire life. And it's
Hmm.
funny because there's all this Star Wars stuff, and it's like I don't know that many Trekkies anymore. So I was texting him, I'm
Hmm.
like, "Hey, Babylon 5's coming back," and he mentioned some actress, and I had to tell him that she's no longer with us, so I don't think she's going to be part of the reboot. But yeah, Babylon 5 is coming back, so
Oh, thank you for that. I will definitely be looking out for
so
that.
sorry, man. I'm gonna get this text later, going, "Hey, guess what I'm stuck watching?" Right on. So, is there something in your past when you were younger that maybe you didn't value as much? Like we grow up and you have aunts, uncles, parents, teachers, just people that are older than you telling you this, that, whatever. Is there something that you maybe kind of disregarded? And now that you're a little bit older, you're like, yep, I understand now.
Time. Um, in my youth, I used to think that money was everything. And growing up and I start to realize true value lies in time. You can never get that back. You can literally lose everything that you have and you can gain that back. But time is something that you can never, replace.
Yeah.
So I can say, when I was younger, that was probably be the thing that I neglected the most, or should I say kind of took for granted, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely been processing that the kind of the last few years as I've gotten a little bit older and kind of hit some milestones, and it's like you can't turn back time. It's like I've
Yeah,
never felt it until more recently, and it's like, oh. So yeah,
yeah,
I think I'm still processing. Like I'm at terms with it, but I'm still processing. And now I think I'm at the point where it's like, okay, it is what it is. How can I utilize my time the best? So
exactly.
I'm still figuring that out. I'm relatively at peace with the circumstances, but it's because I feel like I need to do things about it. And as long as I'm productive, I kind of feel better about it. So, what's your favorite place in the world?
Clearwater Beach, Florida.
Okay, is there a story behind it? It's like so
Well,
specific.
I, I, I've actually lived in Florida quite a few, like for years. I first initially moved down to Clearwater, I believe it was 2006 or 2007. Um, no, it was earlier than that actually. So it was like 2003, 2004. I was about 18, 19
Okay.
when I went down. Um, however, whenever I've felt low, or you know, just needed to get my mind together.
Hmm.
Just going down to the beach, sitting down, just watching the waves. And I like it a lot better than San Diego beaches. I'm sorry, people from San Diego, if you're watching this, but I mean, yeah, Clearwater, Florida, though. I don't know what it is about that beach. I just feel really relaxed.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's special to you. Like I don't know, I get it. Um,
Yeah.
is there a dream you've had that you just maybe you haven't quite accomplished it, but you just have never let go of it?
To be honest with you, I don't think that I've failed at it, so to say, but I feel like I'm in the process of at least completing it.
Okay.
Um, to a degree, it's just like, for example, what you're doing right now. To a degree, you're immortalizing yourself to a degree because years from now, when you're long gone, you're still here. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying my dream is to be immortalized, but it's to not just be forgotten, not just have been, a person that just lived life day to day. And, you know, when I turn back to ash, that's it. So I feel like I've made at least a decent enough imprint in life, to where I'm always going to be there,
Legacy.
so to say.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
legacy. That's what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a concept and I usually forget some of them, but basically it's like there's four things that you need to truly be happy and feel complete. And I ran into this just because there were points in my life where all I basically did was work. And that was kind of the time in my life where I didn't value time like I do now, and it was fine
Hmm.
working 60, 70 hours. And it's like you do that, you technically accomplish so much, but then at the end of the day, you don't feel anything sometimes. So those four things are basically legacy, um, improving a skill, whether it's music or writing or just something, contributing to society, and then being successful. So like work matters, but it's one of four. And then like
Hmm.
contributing to society is one of four. And then learning new skills is one of four. And then legacy for how you remember, that's the other fourth, or that's the fourth piece. And it's like you need all of those. So people that work and
Yep.
work and work and never learn new skills and don't really contribute to a legacy and don't spend time on happiness, it doesn't matter how well they do in that one category. They're missing three.
Hmm.
So yeah, legacy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel as if to a degree, this the younger generation, the generation after me, because I was, born mid '80s, um, I it's like right now, they're talking about, labor shortage and everything else. And I feel as if, the younger generation has a probably a better grasp than the older ones because, they realize, like we complained about it, but they actually took action, because it's like you're sitting here, you're working your butt off for somebody else's legacy.
Yeah.
And you're not making time for your own, and I feel like that's part of it right now, is they're trying to figure out a way to do for them instead of constantly, doing for another, making them rich while they're going home to basically nothing,
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that has always frustrated me about this country, and will continue to until there's a better solution, is healthcare. Because if somebody wants to be, and I'm convinced that it basically is a system, sorry to get a little bit political, but if you think about it, if you can't, like if you have a passion and you have your art and you can go make money from your art, well, great, except for if anything happens, healthcare will bankrupt you. Because in this country, you really kind of only can get healthcare if you work for a corporation. So it seems like it's kind of trying to support capitalism and trying to not support or discourage entrepreneurship. Because if you've got an art where you can make 50, 60, 70 grand a year, which would be a great income, but then healthcare is difficult. And it's like, it's so frustrating, because I think it inhibits creativity and it inhibits happiness. And, it's like, I hope we find a solution that is more balanced so people can have some level of insurance, And it's like, I get that they'll say, well, the insurance companies won't allow it. Well, fine, keep your premium insurance, but there should be a minimum that is quite good. It's like, you shouldn't have to fight for your life because you choose to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Or pay, so much for insulin.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just insane.
Oh, it's criminal.
And to me, it's just like, that's actually part of the reason why I am so fascinated with like Star Trek, because, they basically dreamed up of a future to where things like that we're talking about now don't exist. Those type of problems, the inequality, the capitalistic, suppression of, you being able to even simply just, and this is the most simple thing, to be able to just see a doctor to make sure you're okay. And that's part of the reason I feel as if that's part of the reason why I was drawn to, Star Trek as well. Just that idea of that sort of future, and I feel as if, we need to strive for that here, and everybody is just okay with the status quo. And that's where everybody's bumping heads at this point, is we're saying there's something wrong with it, obviously, and they're just, no, just keep the same. And
the thing though is that I think the people that want it to stay the same are the people that profit. When there's millions of people that it hurts, they're the ones that don't want it to stay the same. And then you'll hear things like, I believe it was either Scandinavia or Europe, Western Europe. Where basically they were saying that somebody had gone over there. I think it was Switzerland. They went over there. They needed to see a doctor. Their paperwork wasn't done. They weren't quite a citizen. And they went to see a doctor. And basically there was like a cap of like $100 or something to see the doctor. And whatever medication they needed was super cheap. And it's like, if it could just be affordable here, insurance wouldn't be a problem. The problem is that it's exploited. And insulin is $200 something instead of $20 or free. I mean, if you literally need a medication to live, not to like make your quality of life better, but like to live, it's really. So I mean, there's layers to the problem, which is unfortunate. But the upside is that also means there's a lot of solutions.
The problem is the people who are in power that don't care about the solution.
Yeah,
is the thing.
Yeah,
because I mean, if you look at it, I mean, just about everything, because of because of capitalism, everything is literally monetized. I mean, it's like, for example, we're one of the few countries that actually have privatized prison systems, and then they wonder why they have people going in and out of these jail systems. Guess what? That's because the person who owned the prison system needs more people to come in, and guess whose pocket they line?
Yep.
The police departments and everything else. So I mean, of course, everybody, there's a lot of things that people are either one refusing to see or just don't know about.
Yeah.
You know, there should be no reason why, basically something that has to do with life and death in this country should be privatized. Something that has to do with people's freedoms should never be privatized. There's a lot of things that this country does that is hypocritical.
Absolutely.
It's to me it is truly honestly hypocritical. It's like, oh, you're free to protest, you're free to do this, but don't protest against this.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, really, I mean, simple glimpse. Look at the variation between incarcerations because of marijuana. Look at the difference between different states.
Exactly.
Why? Because the federal government has it listed as a scheduled, or has it on the schedule as a restricted drug. And it's like, really?
Yeah, it's like, other countries that legalize, even the harder drugs, they legalize it. That means that they're not putting more money into a prison system. They're able to use that money to open up rehab centers, to open up places to get these people help so they're not going in and out of the prison system.
Yeah.
Now, if they were to do the same thing here, I would much rather have my tax dollars go to helping the people than just throwing them inside of a cage for them to get out and go right back in.
Yeah. Well, the thing with that too is if you spend money on drug treatment, that also addresses the homeless population issue right now.
Sure does.
And it's less expensive. Like you'll see how cities are spending upwards of 100 million, cities, not states, trying to address the homeless issue. And it's like it's like if you think about medicine, everything we've been told is preventative care, prevent it. It's always cheaper to prevent it. Okay, well, let's apply that to society and civics. Let's spend the money to prevent it. Let's give people better options. And let's see how much we end up spending comparatively. It's like after school programs. It's like how many, like New York was adding $1 billion to their police fund. It's like, well, what about an after school program?
Exactly.
Like how much would that cost us comparatively? It's like, what's the return on investment? And it's like, I know there's criticism for anything to do with socialism, but it's like people need to realize that socialism isn't what the media makes it out to be. Socialism really is just common sense. And if you can spend less money strategically to improve people's lives, why, as a taxpayer, why wouldn't you?
Exactly.
So,
and a lot of people, they fail to see, like, even throughout history. I mean, it's just like when the Great Depression happened, the Great Depression basically occurred because there was a few people with that had the majority of the wealth, similar to what we have now. Yeah, David Rockefeller, you had Thomas Edison, and there was one other person that basically had the majority of American wealth in their hands. And then that bubble popped, and then everybody was screwed at the end. What bailed us out was socialism.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that. It's like, for example, people don't even realize that, guess what? Public school, socialism.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for socialism, your kid wouldn't be getting an education, or at least a decent one, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they keep comparing, and don't get it wrong, 100% socialism, I feel as if can be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But as you know, I'm a guy of balance.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with having some capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Some. To the extent we have it now, I feel like this is like capitalism extremes.
Yeah.
This is like extreme capitalism. But you have to have something to offset everything. And if you're going to sit there and stuff the pockets of the wealthy, and knowing that the U.S. economy is based 70% off of consumerism, which the wealthy are not even considered to be true consumers. They only can buy so much in a year. You only can do so many things in a year. However, people like you and I, people across this nation that go out constantly, living check to check. If we had the money, guess what? That means there's more money going into homes. There's more money going into cars. There's more money going into multiple different aspects, throughout this nation, which is, why we are the economy, not them.
Yeah.
And I feel as if it's almost intentional, because they know this. They're not stupid. They got these college degrees, and probably way more prestigious than I could even possibly get. And it's sad that, I can, see a solution and they can't.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's just like, it's obvious. It's obviously intentional.
So I just think it's greed. I think they're tempting fate as long as they can get away with it. Because really, when this country and a lot of other countries do the best is when the middle class is strong. That's
Yep.
who buys the goods. That's who buys the services. That's who's getting the education. So you need a strong middle class to
Mm-hmm.
support everything else. And
Yep.
we're getting really out of balance where we've got a few people with a lot of money. We've got a lot of people without a lot of money, and the middle class is kind of getting strangled. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I believe in a fair amount of taxes, but that's a fair amount of taxes. You shouldn't be
Yeah.
putting everything on the back of a middle class that's already struggling, along with student loans. So it's like you're adding barriers to go to school. And it's like, okay, so then you start looking at the competitiveness of our country. It's like GDP, and it's like there's implications all over. It's like, when you look at Asian countries, very focused on technology, very impressive culture surrounding education and the expectations and abilities. And it's like they're on point, and it's like we're struggling to compete, and it's
Yeah.
going to get us. We got lucky with Bitcoin because the power grid in China couldn't handle the mining, and the mining flipped over to Kazakhstan, Canada, and the U.S. So we got lucky on that. In some South American countries that are using volcano heat. How cool is that? To produce power to mine Bitcoin. I think it's Venezuela. So it's like we need to be able to compete, on the global markets, and it's concerning.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's like, as you mentioned, like, with the Asian countries and stuff, if you look at like Japan, the way that their education system is set up, the first 3 years of a child going to school is basically just them figuring out who they are. Here, we're just quick to learn this, learn this, learn this. They're trying to make it to where by the time they get to a certain age, they are not distracted by who am I? What am I doing? Which is your typical average high school, American high school kid.
Yeah.
And, that's partially why they do so good in school over there is because at an early age, they're teaching them to be who they are and know who you are.
That would be an amazing thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe Japan, I believe they're like top 5. Out of the 22 industrialized country, I mean, we're basically almost the worst when it comes to education. It's like America lost their competitiveness, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like, oh, World War II ended. We're going to get real lax now.
Yeah. Well, and education's expensive. So if you want to go to university, there are people that would be more than willing to continue their education, graduate degrees, and they would just work on it when they could, because a lot of people have passion for learning and lifelong learning. I'm a lifelong learner, but honestly, I'm done with the bill. Like, I've already got student loans I'm paying off, and it's like I'm done. Like, I'll find other ways to learn things. I don't need the check anymore. I don't need the check mark anymore. Like, I'll just find it and I'll learn the things that I'm interested in on my own, because it's like I'm done. Mm-hmm. So it's like you've got a country of 330 something million people. A lot of people will be interested in continuing their education, but it's like they can't afford it or don't want to afford it. You get to a point in your life where like you got other things you want to do. You got kids going to school. It's like you got to take care of them. So it's like we're losing a lot of opportunities with a lot of great minds because of a dollar, basically.
Yeah.
So, yep. Man. So do you have any regrets? Curveball.
Honestly, I cannot think of one. The only reason why I try not to regret anything, because in some way, shape, or form I benefited from it.
Okay.
Whether it was a lesson, whether it was, a better understanding will still be a lesson. But, either way, everything is a lesson in life, and regardless if I screwed up, I know not to do it,
Mm-hmm.
or if I seen somebody else do something else, so as far as regrets, I mean, I can't say that I truly honestly have any.
And I appreciate that answer so much. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. Value of education, value of learning.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so
Yeah.
tell me about your book.
Life is a classroom.
Yeah. Tell me about your book.
All right. So now, mind you, I'm actually far from a religious person. Um, However, it's kind of like a fictional, my take on Revelations type of deal.
Okay.
It's actually a 2-book series. I'm still in the process of working on the second book. However, it's a book based on this guy. He grew up in some of the worst situations that you could possibly think of as a child. He grew up watching his mother, as a heroin addict. She also, was a prostitute, things of that nature. He came in at a young age, found her, overdosed in the bathroom and everything else, and ended up staying with his aunt. He of course made bad decisions in his life, decided to change it around, and so on and so forth. And he basically went on a straight and narrow and everything else. However, his cousin that he grew up with was still inside of the life of, basically, how can I say, like the gangster life, so to say. Um, so in the process, it's really hard. For me, it's just like, because my mind, because I have like ADD really bad, so my mind kind of jumps around a lot. So you got to bear with me a little bit. So, oh yeah. So anyway, so he ends up basically getting into a whole big ordeal with his cousin. His cousin tries to get him to get back into basically that sort of lifestyle. He's basically, telling him, I don't want to live that life no more. And in the process, we actually were able to successfully clone a person.
Okay.
And now there's like 2 main characters, basically. And that clone ended up becoming the son of the devil.
Okay.
And so it basically, so this clone basically grows up. It's extremely smart, athletic, everything else. It's basically like how can I say, the perfect person, the image of the perfect person, basically.
Okay.
And he, deep down inside, it grows up and one, it doesn't feel emotion the way that we do. And then 2, the curiosity that it has is well, let's say, disturbing.
You brought science into it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So of course I had to.
Of course.
So yeah. So anyway, so this whole big ordeal happens. The main, the main antagonist, he ends up dying. In the process, he ends up going to hell.
Okay.
And while he is there, he feels like he was there for eternity, but in all actuality, he wakes up and it's 5 years later, and he notices that the world around him is in ruins. And he sees this angel who only he can see,
Okay.
who basically guides him through the journey. So it's like, people would automatically assume he's supposed to be like Jesus, when he's not. He's like somebody, totally different.
Okay.
But it's basically my interpretation of Revelation, so to say. So
Okay.
that's, yeah.
So don't tell me the ending. I am going to read it, actually.
Okay.
I'll grab it.
I'm not going to give away.
Yeah. Don't give away the good stuff. And then you're working on the second book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm working on the second book as well as another one.
Okay. I want to ask you for a timeline. I know better.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, the time could be a couple years from now. Who knows?
Yeah. I read all the Game of Thrones, and I think we're still waiting for the next book. I'm not aware of it being out, but I kind of gave up, so it could be, and I just don't know. But yeah, it's like I don't ask for timelines.
Yeah. And Game of Thrones, to me, it was a little odd the way they did it.
Oh,
Because it was like,
yeah, I read the book series completely before the show ever came out. And there's a lot of differences. The first season is pretty close, but there's a lot of differences afterwards. And I got super confused because I remember the book very thoroughly. And then it's like, wait, who? And then it kind of went off the rails a little bit, a lot of bit. Yeah. Definitely deserved controversy for how that turned out.
Yeah, and from my understanding too is I think they got like halfway through the season. Come to find out, more books were coming out or something like that, and they finished off the of course the series, of course, before the rest of the books come out. So it's just like you watch the series and you're just like, wait, so how's the book going to turn out?
Yeah.
So, but then again too, I mean, they did they sort of kind of did the same thing with like the Bourne identities and everything else.
I still have to watch the last one.
Yeah,
I'm a few years behind.
The books are way better.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I'll just skip it.
The books are way better.
All right. Does it track pretty close?
The books are way better. I'm sorry?
Does it track pretty close, or is it?
Yeah. Okay. It is pretty close. It's like I said, I'm a person that really liked the little things, and there were little things in that book that I felt like it was like a connection for me. Then it's like I'm watching the first movie and I'm like, huh. And then the second one, I'm just like, okay, this is now it's getting to the point of annoyance.
Especially with Bourne, there's so much room for detail in there. And it's like, I love it in books when you read something and you don't realize it's going to be relevant later and then you realize it was that little snippet, that little sneak peek that the author gave you. The funny thing about Game of Thrones was there would be 20 to 40 pages of detail. It never ended up mattering. It was just detail.
Yep.
I'm like 40 pages of a really slow point, and it never came to fruition. And it's like, oh no, 700-page book. So, yeah, I sped read a little bit of that. But I'll have to read Bourne.
Sometimes it's good to give a little bit of detail, but let everybody else fill in the detail with their imagination.
Yeah.
Too much detail kind of ruins it.
Well, it's balance. I mean, it's balance. It's like, your reader's time and like what's valuable for your reader's time. It's like, I'm not a writer though, so it's like, that's all I got. I'm sure you understand more.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
Right on.
Yeah, you should definitely, I'm telling you, you should definitely take one of those short stories or something and try to turn it into something.
I could maybe do a short story. I don't think I would ever be a novelist. Maybe a short story. Maybe a poem. Some abstract thought I have. I love poetry. Absolutely love poetry.
You can actually do a book with just like a mixture of short stories and poems.
I think I have a couple of those, actually.
Yeah.
There
you go.
Right on.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this. It has been absolutely wonderful talking to you.
Thank you. I try, I try to be,